Welcome everyone, I'm the Captain, Ross Memphis Pambrun. With me as always is my friend, the co-host, the president, Lawrence Gervais. We're broadcasting from Calgary, Region 3, Métis Nation of Alberta, which is part of the historic Métis Nation homeland. We would also like to acknowledge these lands are the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, and Tsuut'ina, Stoney Nakoda, for whom we share this land on the basis of our historical and ongoing relationships. We would also like to thank all of our First Nation friends, to the Métis settlements, and to our Métis brothers and sisters and families. We'd like to give thanks to our elders for their guidance and to Mother Earth for the time she allows us to share her bounty. And now, folks, from the Captain and the President, let's get the wheel squeaking. Welcome, folks, for rolling into another wonderful day with the squeaky wheel here in Alberta. Lawrence, this had the best week when it came to weather. And folks, when this comes out, just like the rest of us, you're probably shoveling a little bit. But thank you, folks, for jumping here on with the squeaky wheel. With me, as always, is my very good friend and co-host, the president, Lawrence Gervais. I'm Ross Memphis Pambrun. I am the CEO of the Memphis Group and one of the co-hosts here where we share conversation from a Métis perspective. Always thank our listeners for jumping on. Thank you to our video listeners. Folks, make sure that you send the message to your friends that Lawrence and I are both fun, interesting, and just darn good characters. We enjoy sharing this conversation. Go to us, find us on YouTube, The Squeaky Wheel, Métis Conversation, and make sure you hit the subscribe button because each time we get that, it just sends out another message to our listeners. Folks, keep the wheel squeaking. So, Lawrence, let's jump into it. Take us around a few of the things that are happening within the region, because I know the province does a great job when it comes to sharing conversation about what the programs are out there. And I think we do a fantastic job of sharing that information. But hit us up on some of those ones that you've seen that are available to our Métis listeners right now.
Oh, gee. We go through quite a few programs. You know, we still offer the housing, the employment and training, as well as our, all our research that we do. And then, of course, what we do at the region and this COVID updates that are happening. We do have a business arm too, a Pedigo-san, that people get business like support for businesses. We feel that's a really prime, important initiative for us. And one of the APPI's new programs is these people that are kind of the event people that have lost out due to COVID. Now we have more options for them to get support. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, real quickly.
Yeah, I know that and I talk about it quite often. Folks, get involved in the things like the harvesting opportunities are out there. Right now, I know I saw on the Voyager Voice that comes out, there's the early child benefit when it comes to sports. We're seeing, the homeowner one. Now, take us a little bit into the homeowner one, because I saw that program come out, but I wasn't 100% sure who that's for.
Well, when you go to the bank to qualify for a mortgage, you can either get a down payment, which is a down payment program, or if you already are a current homeowner and you've already passed the first time buyer sort of club, you can get into sort of home repair program. So those are the two big ones that we have currently. And it definitely will up your game in terms of real estate or what you're developing. I think that's a great program too.
So the one when it comes to a bit of the renovation support, that's for people moving into new homes, new condos, their first time into a new product.
Yeah, and it kind of adapts to that, but it's not necessarily. You can get that program with if you're 2 years into your mortgage, you can still qualify.
Oh, okay.
But it lasts for 5 years until the next one happens.
So folks, if there's anything I could recommend is make sure you go to albertametis.com or link through to the provincial website through our metis3.org. This is where you'll find us. You can find our link there as well. And an easy way to email both Lawrence and I is through our website. or again, as always, tsw@metis3.org. Lawrence, Cultural Center.
Yes.
I want to talk music, and we're going to get there, but take us through what happened, what's going on with this cultural center.
I got a email, which was very interesting, about the McMurray Métis. I think Bill Ludet is the CEO up there, but they've raised, I think, $44 million, or have plans to build a $44 million Métis Cultural Center up there in Fort McMurray. And, it's very interesting because, where it's going to be sitting is on Moccasin Flats. And Moccasin Flats, I think in 1981, was what the city deemed as a shanty town, but it was a Métis and First Nations sort of dwelling on the sort of riverbank there. And the bulldozers came in one day and just took all the homes away in Moccasin Flats, and just everybody had to disperse. But because of reconciliation, now the city is working with the Métis group to establish a Métis Cultural Center on that same land. So they built condominiums there. I'm sure they're tearing those down and putting this very large complex there.
So this is a educational resource as well as a gathering place?
Yeah, I mean, anything you can think of Métis culture. So, from studios to classrooms to gathering spaces, big halls, gymnasiums, those things.
Wow. Now, I've been to Fort McMurray many times. And how accessible is this going to be? Or are they trying to use it maybe as a way to encourage growth up there?
I'm not sure. I think it's maybe because there was a space there, and they applied for the permit and it was approved. So they did have plans to put something in, but I'm not sure I'm sure tourism is a huge aspect of it too.
Yeah, well, we are trying to build more into the Métis crossing or the the campgrounds and such. Well, good luck to them. That's a great place to start.
And it's nice to see a really strong local push through and start to do major projects.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to read a little bit more about it. I know, I wasn't even quite sure how long it was going to take in order for something like that to get the wheels into motion. And you look around down south here, whether or not it's the Flames building that seems to be changing, the entertainment, that this might not be going forward, and the Green Line may or may not be going forward. Working through major projects right now, trying to manage the supply chain, the cost of materials. So at least we're seeing a commitment. Let's hope that they can move forward in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but it's different in all municipalities. It's different in Calgary because of COVID and certainly with this new mayoral election happening, or council, the whole election happening in November in the fall, right? So we have to be braced for that.
Actually, that's a really good point, because it's going to pull the reins back just a little bit on council making too many decisions, because now they're going to want to see how it all plays out and who they're going to support when it comes to a new mayor. So that is exciting. I've already started seeing leaflets in my mailbox about, here we come. Here's somebody who's running for mayor. So I think Nenshie's done 3 terms. I mean, that's a considerable amount of time, a phenomenal amount of public service.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised to see him go. You're right. He's created a few enemies in the world out there, especially with his rant at the gentleman who's the land developer and home developer, and the struggles that he had with that. I mean, you're always going to create controversy, even in our conversations that you and I have. There's always somebody who's going to sort of see the other side of our support, our conversation. But folks, no matter how angry you are, either get into the conversation and share your side, or just send your angry emails to Lawrence.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the first ones to really, congratulate him on all the service he's done. And, even though we may have a different opinion on a certain things, he's still the mayor, and I still, I definitely, he's surpassed a lot of things in terms of how much support and service, and being the Mayor of the Year award and all these other things. But I think, with this current economic situation we're living in Alberta, it's really hard for I think any leader to really stand opposed or stand for. It's just, there's so much of a situation, like a volatile situation happening right now.
Yeah. And now that people connect on different social media platforms, the effort of them actually having to go and listen isn't there. They just have somebody rant on their platform and they see it on their phone and go, well, now I'm angry. It's not really the best way to connect. You should hear the whole story. You should be participating in it versus just reacting to what one statement may be. But hey, maybe that's the Twitter society. Red River Cart database.
Oh, yeah. So Region 3 took it upon themselves to really develop some GIS mapping initiatives for us. Because in terms of our history and traditional land use information, or TKU information, it's not really stored into one sort of vehicle for us. It was always just stored in reports, and we would put it in our safe and keep it there. But we never really had something that we could utilize in a program up until we were introduced to this IRM program coming from, it's a digital mapping, and is also we used in consultation.
No, sorry, so IRM, that's Indigenous Resource Management?
That's correct.
Oh, yeah, because I know we had talked about it once before. I just want to make sure our listeners hit that, because at first I didn't know if that was technical jargon. But yeah, it's the reference to that it's a resource management tool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. So proponents will see this big, large circle of our footprint with no details, but they'll just see a big bubble, and we'll see the actual details on our end, right? So we kind of use that in consultation. So if there's a project that happens, it gets triggered, and then there's a whole back and forth in the software. But we needed a starting place to go to. So we worked with the Capstone project at SAIT to develop to begin a digital mapping area. So we got 3 students from SAIT, and along with Peter McPherson, our GIS expert at our office, at Apeiron, that we used, and we developed this digital mapping. So 2 of the things that we started to focus on for the students were the Red River Cart trails, where they were in southern Alberta, and then also where the forts were. So we did a lot of, they utilized a Métis historian. So Matt had assisted them, and they came up with this beautiful map of where the Red River Cart trails were. And what's interesting is, through the research, we found that about 84% of the Red River Cart trails were taken up by the railways. So any sort of railway that you see going by your city or town could potentially been a Red River Cart trail at one time.
Well, and it's not like people, when they're dragging their Red River carts along, are looking for the highest, most difficult route. So yeah, once you've established a reasonable route, whether you're walking or, hey, let's create the next opportunity to set up a railway in order to move through there, that makes perfect sense. And as we've done the research, and as we seem to talk every week about the different archaeological studies that happen, we're finding Métis history, trinkets, the elders talking about, yes, this was a historic piece of land. Yeah, we're proving that. And definitely making reference to the fact that here in southern Alberta, there were Métis people.
Yeah, but also, and using for freight. I mean, if you think of a train the way it is now, well, the Red River Cart trails were all tied together, 150 to 200 carts sometimes, in just one big long train. And they were moving freight. So, along the fur trade. So Métis people were already doing these exercises of transportation. And then when the train kind of came in with the steam locomotive, then it changed. It changed the landscape. But then certain owners of those companies, those railway companies, certainly made it illegal for Métis to even reside near those trails anymore, right? So they said, well, it's our railway now, so nobody can be around here, right?
So instead of kilometers per hour, perhaps we should try and get car manufacturers to change it to RRC per hour. How many Red River carts per hour speed are you going? We're going to revolutionize speed.
Yeah, and I estimate I think it was Matt had said it would take about 4 days just to even get to Red Deer. So, it would take quite a while to even get around.
And if each one of those wheels just squeaked every 5 seconds and you got 100 along, I can't do the math, but I got to figure it's somewhere in the thousands of how many squeaks you're listening to as that thing moves. Let's talk a little bit about, because it's, Lord knows, we talk about it every week, the world of COVID and vaccinations. I know you and I had talked earlier this week. I think it's delightful in polite conversation when you're chatting with a fellow friend or a family member. It's we no longer use the whole word. Now we just use a little bit of the shortcut. Did you get hit with AZ? How about you got any JJ in your arm? I think you ended up getting some Dern, didn't you? Versus right. I have a family member lately that's got Pfizer. Here we've created a cultural euphemisms, I guess, for our vaccinations. It's become such a common discussion.
Well, till the new one comes in, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think was it David Chartrand got the AstraZeneca finally in Manitoba. But I mean, for their population, the Métis population, to be kind of turned away from their government is kind of an issue. Like Saskatchewan has ours, Alberta has ours, BC has theirs, but Alberta, we kind of have a fairly decent relationship. BC, of course, they were vaccinating the younger ages far, better than us here at the Métis. But the Manitoba weren't even included in any of the vaccine rollout. So the Manitoba Métis. So I'm not sure if it's Pallister's relationship with Chartrand is the issue. I'm not sure. But they managed to get, I think, 100 from the First Nations there, and I think another 100 that just kind of showed up on their doorstep. And they do have their own Métis pharmacy, so they've been doing vaccinations all this last week, and I think it's great. It's just that's 200, and they're probably in the thousands for members, right?
When it comes to you think of Manitoba as the nucleus of where the Métis culture began in the Red River Cart area, Red River area. How is that relationship not stronger when it comes to provincially?
I mean, I think because there's a big fight over hydro, the Manitoba Hydro Project, and certainly MMF was going to get a huge allotment of that. And when Pallister got in, he turned his back on them and said, no, you're not going to get it. And I think that's when the relationship just dwindled, entirely. And, we're not in Manitoba. I don't really know I only see what's on the media. So that's all I really know. But I know that Pallister is not up there in the polls anymore as much as he used to be. And I'm sure people are just waiting for the next election.
Oh, well, I imagine whether you like it or not, the next election's coming. In our case, whether it's municipal, you think of how the UCPs, you hear the conversation. I mean, how well is Kenny doing? It's easy to fault somebody when you're not in power, but, it seems like there's a lot of necessary direction coming within the UCP. So unsure as to how whether there's mixed reactions to the Kenny support. It's politics, right? Yeah,
I mean, you can't even walk 2 steps in Winnipeg without seeing a Métis landmark, so it's just, if they think they don't exist, well then, they're making a huge mistake.
Let's jump into a little bit of music conversation, partially because ACM, the American Country Music Awards, are on. And I know I was having this conversation recently um, with a family member, the CMAs, the Country Music Awards versus our CCMAs, the Canadian Country Music Awards. But I'm always trying to figure out sometimes in the world of music which one means more. But me and my own wife would say that the ACMs are just as valuable as the CMAs. Okay, so tonight we're going to be watching them. The big issue there is Luke Bryan just got COVID. And then the other question is, so he won't be participating or probably involved in any way. And isn't it interesting that there was a letter that was seemingly, that was handwritten, they claim, very well tailored from that little fella Morgan Wallen, who was making all of the prejudiced, ignorant statements, not being culturally aware. And just before the CMAs are coming out, and he was Entertainer of the Year. But I don't necessarily think it's a accolade that he's wearing right now because of his sort of ignorance. But it sure seems as though he's trying, or somebody on his behalf is trying. How do we keep him just within the public eye so that someday he comes back? But and he very well might, or likely will. But what a burden he is, and a burden that he's put on to his family, his friends, the music industry, all of his own band members. He's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, he does have a different. He wants to be an outlaw, but this is not the right way to do it.
No.
It's not. I don't think even the other outlaws out there or outlaw country people in the past have really said those negative things. They just do things on their actions and on stage and off stage. But you can't lead this persona if it's not really there, and you're kind of finding a way to do it. Like him. I mean, bringing back the mullet, yeah, I get it. But is it really does it make you an outlaw? But I don't know.
Yeah, because that guy is not business in the front, party in the rear. Sort of traditional mullet look. I think he screwed up. I still don't think he's really received his comeuppance for his ignorance. But
you gotta earn those titles.
You have
right?
to earn it.
As
yeah.
an outlaw singer, and his beginnings on The Voice, and then he moved into a few albums, and that's it. So he hasn't really done what he's supposed to be the bad boy in country music. And
even writing a letter, you know what? There's more you can do. That didn't take a lot. Now, I get it. There's a personal journey there, but there is a lot more he needs to do in order to connect with all of the other minority groups and the communities, and work to show that he's putting the effort in, build trust again. And it's going to be a long journey. Haven't seen him do anything yet other than write this letter saying, oh, but I would not imagine even he wrote that letter. There's going to be the lineup of publishers and the lineup of people behind him, lawyers and everybody reading it going, yeah, we want to get you back because they're going to make money on him when he gets back. Yeah. But all I can do is hope he's doing it for the right reasons.
I think what it is too, it's a music contract. Probably it's a time frame. It probably has a certain amount of songs he has to do or albums. And then also you got to look at PR, right? Most of these people, you can't get rid of that stuff right away and within a couple months. It takes a while.
Yeah, it's going to take a long while. And for example, I noticed I think they're probably 80s rock band Foreigner. Somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but they're coming back. That's their plan, whether it's the end of this year or they're starting to set up to do a tour again. But their name is Foreigner. Hey, I've listened to them for 30 years. I hope it's okay. I'm surprised people haven't complained that they don't reflect or they're what is it when you're absconding somebody else's culture, you're misappropriating somebody's culture. I guess if you're not a foreigner, can you be in the band Foreigner? Or are we starting to stir something up?
Well, I mean, Dixie Chicks, they dropped the Dixie. Now they're the Chicks. But isn't that a different term for, another female, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a derogatory term.
Yeah,
as far as,
that's a good point. Are we going to start? I mean, should we put a committee together and start in the dictionary? And is this where it begins right now? You just start crossing things off and all of a sudden send it back to Britannia and say, okay, you got to take all these words out of the dictionary and we can't use them anymore. Even though, again, I always, when I talk to people, say, listen, it's how you have conversation and in what context are you having it. If you're having discourse at a university, you're having academic, you're having conversation with your family or friends, what is the, are you coming at the conversation politely? Are you engaging? Are you, you're not being dismissive. You're simply, trying to find what's allowable, what's comfortable. So we have to be very careful. Otherwise, our institutions are being handcuffed. Well, you can't even talk about what you can't talk about under any circumstances. So does that just mean we never talk about it? In which case, it doesn't go away.
Well, squeaky wheel. I mean, squeaky could be offensive to somebody in another language for all we know. It could mean something entirely different. I don't know. We've never really searched it.
That's a great point. So now, okay, here's the thing. Folks, here's what we need you to do. Send this video podcast to every one of your friends culturally around the world. We're going to need to hit all of the countries, all of the listeners. This is where it begins, Lawrence. We're going to use our name, the Squeaky Wheel, to find out if the word squeaky is culturally insensitive somewhere in the world. I love it.
Yeah,
Here it begins.
It's probably like an Irish slang term for something, or British, who knows? I mean.
Yeah, I think that's delightful. Well, Lawrence, as always, I always enjoy sharing our conversation. We're usually sometimes either talking about sports, we're jumping into what's happening locally. Folks, we always appreciate our listeners. We try to create conversation that and let's go back to that again. It's from a Métis perspective, but it's from our Métis perspective. And I'm always willing to have my mind open. When you hear something or there's something that's confusing or you want to know more about something, always reach out to us. tsw@métis3.org. We appreciate you as listeners. We do this because this is a chance for both of us to learn. I'm always picking up new information. And every time I get to have that conversation with my friend Lawrence, whether we're bringing guests on or whether it's just that we're talking about what's happening to all of us at this time, and whether it's I'm getting whacked with AZ and you're getting hit with the Dern, we like to share that so everybody has a little bit of awareness. Lawrence, thank our listeners and close them out.
Yes, I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, and make sure you hit subscribe and share as much as you can the channel. We do have, I think this is our 40th episode. So we're getting up there.
Yeah, it always is fun. So folks, thank you for listening. And from all of us here at the Squeaky Wheel, keep the wheel squeaking.